Welcome to the second edition of our little Blender course. The people are ruling in, but that's okay. Who misses the beginning can watch the video afterwards. And I guess we'll just start by like a little review from what we did last week. We'll just try to put two windows next to each other. So, and of course I need to share my screen.
Die jetzt erstmal als die Leute, die haben jetzt keine Muster drauf, das können wir mal sehen, aber das ist auch im Internet.
Okay, can you see a screen where there's like a Blender window on one side and the...
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, I hope you had some fun with the Blender Open Movies. This is the one that is purely 2D animation. Like this was new in 2018 that you can do 2D animation as well. And you can paint, it's vector graphics, but you can animate it. Yeah, and notice that there's links on all the stuff with like examples and little videos or images. It's also like a list of vocabulary, so you know what sculpting and rendering and soft body dynamics are, what compositing is, or what color grading, wire removal, green screening. Oh, there's a parenthesis too much. Rigging is where you put like a skeleton inside your model, and skinning is the associating the bones that is around it. And yeah, and then we started by explaining a bit the interface of Blender. And we went into the preferences. If you have a laptop or a computer without a numpad, you should check the emulate numpad. Zoom to mouse makes it a bit easier, and you should assign this hotkey to frame selected if you have no numpad, because then you could just use the regular colon for framing the selected object. We will use this extensively today, so you should definitely make sure that this works. Then we went through Zoom, which is just turning the mouse wheel, and you should be able to see, no you don't, I will turn on this little gadget here, so you can see which keys I'm pressing. You see this little mouse symbol appearing, and I'm highlighting whatever I do, and whenever I press a letter, you will see it right next to the symbol, right? So this might be, oh, you don't see the middle mouse turning, but you see it when I press it. Okay, better than. Let's get rid of this one. And then we had a look at how we can split windows. So when you move to the top right corner, like first of all, you can like rearrange the borders, and you can right-click the header and just click on header. I don't know, last time I was stupid. I don't know why it didn't appear. And if you make it this little cross, you can drag down and it will divide this window. Same works for the corners. And you could just continue dividing this smaller and smaller. If you want to join two fields, oops, no, I did it wrong. You have to pick them in a way that they can easily join one with the other. So I go left drag and up drag. Whoops. Yeah, sometimes I mix the two up, but you can also right click on the border and say join areas. This saves you the trouble of having to drag it in the right way. And then you always have to select which one, in which direction you want to join them. It takes a bit of practice, but once you get used to it, it's super handy. Okay, and then, oh yeah, you can also hold Control and Shift. For example, if I hold Shift, no, sorry, where is it? Shift left mouse button drag will separate the window, so you can put it on a second monitor. And if you control swap on the windows, it just it changes between two windows. You can swap them forth and back.
Hey, sorry to interrupt you, Ferdy.
Yeah?
Yeah, Branko here and behind Milan's PC. Last time I asked about the unit, centimeters and stuff. I think it's here somewhere in properties, but I couldn't find them.
Yeah, we will get to this in a moment. But good hint, yeah. So control and the page up, page down key cycle through all the different workspaces you have, like all the presets that you can see up here. And control space will maximize the window that is under your cursor position. So always pay attention to where over which area your mouse cursor is positioned when you execute a shortcut. Then we learned about the 1, 3, and 7 keys for changing the viewport to front, top, and right view. And 5 for toggling orthographic. You can also see up here if you're in a perspective or orthographic view. Normally, if I'm in one of the main views, I work in orthographic, and if I look at it, also if you rotate your view, it automatically changes to perspective. You could switch it back to orthographic, but yeah, that's a matter of taste. And 0 for the camera view. This is what would get rendered if you hit F12. Then we saw that there's another two objects, the camera and the light. And we also learned that with shift right-clicking, you can position this 3D cursor. And shift S, cursor to world origin, will put it back in the middle. And we know that we can delete something with the X key or with the backspace. If I hit X, it will ask for confirmation. So don't move your mouse too fast, because if you move it away, it disappears. So you have to confirm. If you hit delete, it will just vanish. And then we added our favorite monkey, Suzanne. And we can tell it to be shaded smooth, which is this one, which is right now is not so visible. Then we could also turn on the auto smooth, which is right under the object properties. Where are they? Surface. Okay, I have to put the right object data properties. I should put a little picture which one the object data properties are. This one says object properties, and then there should be normals, but I can't see. Okay, I will fix this in the documentation. And then we made a little tower where we just stacked a few things on top of each other, for getting used a little bit to the 1, 3, 7 keys. And grab, rotate, and scale. And if you write a number, let's say I hit S and type 0.5, it will be half the size. And if I hit S and type 2, it will be twice the size. Don't forget to press enter after this. And then we also saw that if once we are in grab mode and we hit X or Y, X or Y or Z, that we can constrain our movement in a certain direction. And we can do the same if we click the middle mouse button. And if we are in a command and we want to abort it, we right click or hit escape. Okay, and then we already discovered the edit mode, which is by hitting the tab key. Then we see all the vertices. We can deselect everything by selecting Alt-A or AA. If we hit A rapidly, it does the same thing as Alt-A. And we can select everything by hitting A once. up here, we can choose between vertex, edge, and face selection mode. And if you select a face and hit extrude, E for extrude. Just a second, somebody is not finding their way in. To send a link. I will stop sharing for a second. And I don't remember the link for today. I can just do this one.
Branko here. I also had a problem logging with my link today. I don't know why, but I'm working with from my son PC, so we are together on.
Okay. I sent an invitation, so it's another link than last time. But yeah, some people try to access with the old one, which of course doesn't work.
I had the same problem, but
okay, I see that was the problem. Okay.
I had the same problem with the new link, but I had to download the app, and then it worked. But I couldn't get it in.
Okay.
Not via Chrome, not via. I tried all the web things. So maybe that's a tip to download the app.
Okay. Yeah, today I made a different kind of video conference, and I was hoping to get some more tools. And I thought the conference has some tools for you where you can say faster or go slower, or you can send emoticons and interact with me a little bit more. Right now, you only have like a button for sharing, for raising your hand. So if you want, you can try this. Okay, everybody raise their hands. If this works, then we could use it. No, there's like a little button. If you go to participants, you can see all the participants. And if you take a column, maybe I can share this in a way that you can see it. No. I know I can't share the screen of the screen share. Yeah, no big deal. But yeah, if you search a little bit, there might be a way of raising your hand. But actually, that's not so important. If it, I'll just continue, and I don't have enough screen space anyway to see the chat and speakers at the same time. So maybe this was just a stupid idea. Okay, so we got up to extrude with the E key. Of course, you can also enter like a distance that you want to extrude. And we can, if you switch to the vertex select mode, we can just take one vertex and extrude it. And if I select more than 3 vertices, holding shift and clicking on the vertex with the left mouse button, I can hit F for making a new face. And once I have a new face extruded, I get a new volume. Okay. And if you want to make a hole into something, you could hold extrude and then right click, hit S for scale, and then you can extrude it inwards, so you get like a little hole.
By the way, Ferry, can you maximize your screen so we see the whole desktop of yours?
Right now you see like 2 windows, right?
How do I maximize this one that you're showing? That's what I'm looking now.
Like everybody should be seeing my Blender kind of big and then like a smaller window to the right side.
I mean, I see your screen, but I see also people above your screen faces. So I don't know.
There must be a way where you can. There should be a way where I can be big without the people. Like in my case, I have this little panel that I can open and close that I think you might see as well, but I just have it minimized so it doesn't get in my way. And yeah, in the worst case, it's gonna be full screen in the video, but yeah, it would be much easier if you can follow me with a good view. give it a try, double clicking on things or maximizing.
Yes, we try a few things. Now it works. Yeah, you have to play around.
Okay. I will try to find the raise hand thing again. No, this is too complicated. Okay, no raising hands today. Maybe in the next then. Okay, so we extruded edges, and we made faces, and then we made volumes. And if we apply a subdivision surface modifier to something, which is this one here, hidden where the little symbol of the is, and if I make it 2, which is a good level of subdivision, I have to shade smooth again, and then we see like Suzanne with a funny thing. Okay. And yeah, this was the review of last week. 20 minutes. Well, okay. Let's continue. So we start a new file new. And we get our default cube. And you see to the left side, you see some tools. Like up here is you can switch between several selection types: tweak, select box, select circle, and select lasso. But those do exactly the same thing than what I showed you, like the lasso select. Now it went back to box select. So if I do box select, I draw this rectangle for selecting, AA for deselecting. If we use the select circle, we get this little circle, and everything we move over with the mouse button clicked will get added to the selection. And with this one, I can change the size of the circle. Yeah. And then we have the select lasso, where we can just draw like a lasso for selecting stuff. You can toggle between those with the W key. So whenever I hit W, it switches to something else. And there's also this very first one is the tweak. So I can just left click on things and move them around. But I don't really like this because it takes longer. If you want to use the tweak tool, you have to like point and click onto a vertex, and this takes longer than if I use the selection tools and select something and then just hit G or R. This is much quicker, and I don't have to do any pointing and clicking. So this is actually, I don't use those. I just use the shortcuts for grab, rotate, scale, and I don't need those at all. This is also why I turn off the default gizmos. Like you could have all of those gizmos, even you could have all of them at once. So you could like move, rotate, and scale with a gizmo. But sometimes you have a dense mesh and you want to select something, and the arrow is in the way. You can't click on it because it hides a little bit of your view. You could change the size of it in the preferences, but I usually just completely turn it off. Okay. Yeah. So this was the explanation why I prefer GSR to any of those tools here. And I also for selecting, I just use C for circle select, and B for box select, and Control right button drag is the lasso select. And that's all you need. Okay, so now I want to make this gingerbread man together with you. And let's start by making a new file again, in case you mess something up. And we start by going into edit mode, either up here or with the tab key. I switch to the face selection mode, and I select the face that points in the X direction. If I want to double check, well, our object is symmetric, so it doesn't matter if where front and back is. But in general, it's a good idea to be clear where front, back, left, and right is. right and left. Good advice for any 3D modeling. Yeah. Okay, so I select the right face. I hit the E key for extruding, and I already know that I want to make this by the same size. So I hit 2 and then enter. So I extruded the cube 2 units, and now I will turn it and extrude the other side, E to enter, by 2 units as well. Don't forget the enter. Okay, is everybody happy? Is this too fast, too slow? Can you follow?
Super.
Okay. Then we select the 3 faces on top by shift clicking on them, so I can choose all of them. And then we do the same E to enter, E to enter, E to enter 3 times. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4 segments.
By the way, Ferdi, sorry to interrupt, the units, to remind you.
Yeah, we will get to the units in a second. No, actually, I forgot. Okay, we can quickly do the units thing, because actually what I wanted to show you here is that you can make this panel bigger if you drag it, so you can also see the descriptions, and you can completely hide it by hitting the T key. So T key toggles the toolbox. And on the other side, we also have a toolbox that you can also hit these little arrows that they will also open the toolbox, and T will make it disappear. I guess you can also drag it inwards until it disappears. Exactly. And so this is T for the T panel, and there's also N for the numeric panel. And I will move this away a little bit. The numeric panel shows you your dimensions. So now we see that our block is 6 meters by 2 meters by 8 meters. If we export this as an STL file, it will be 6 millimeters by 2 millimeters by 8 millimeters. In theory, you could set the units, but in the end, I usually just stick to having this as millimeters, because I know if I just do a regular export, then it's going to be the right dimension. But sometimes you get into problems, because if you have a big 3D model, which is like, let's say 600 millimeters, it will come into Blender as 600 meters, which makes the camera clip, so you can't see the whole object at the same time. It just gets cut off. You could change this in the camera settings, but it's a bit inconvenient. So many times, instead of having those as millimeters, I make it centimeters. So I just scale the whole model by the factor of 0.1, so it gets 10 times smaller. And I know this, so when I export like if I go to I select an object, I go to File, Export STL, then I can set a custom scale. So if I put a 0.1 here, then my centimeters will be millimeters again. And this is actually the most handy way. So either I work with this as millimeters and just save in 1:1, or I make it 10 times smaller so I can work better in Blender. Also, when you're rendering, some of the dimensions for rendering, they depend on size. So if you have like a glass sphere, the index of refraction will be different if your sphere is like 10 meters diameter or just 1 meter. So many times it makes sense to use this actually as meters and then export with the right factor, so that you get your 3D print in the right size. Okay, I hope this explains the dimension part. It's in the end, don't worry what Blender writes. You just have you just have to know that like the default is this is actually millimeters. If you export an STL like this, it will be tiny. So if you scale it, if you make it so that this is like 60 millimeters, like the size that you want, then everything will be fine. And if you're getting problems with your camera clipping or with the with the render looking weird, then just scale everything 10 times smaller. And when you export, increase the size. Okay, so
now how did you enter the transform window? How did you open it with the different?
It's the N key.
Okay.
The N key or hitting this little arrow on the side. And in here we have first the uppermost is have to be in object mode, so I can see the dimensions. If I rotate it or scale it, I would also see it here. And I can also rotate or scale it from here or reset the rotation to 0 or to any value that I want. So with those, like, of course, same with position. For the moment, we just leave it at 0. But this is a good way of if you want to rotate or scale something very precisely, apart from the entering numbers with the G and S and R keys, you can use this here. Then in tool, there's again the selection. In view, I don't have anything special to show you. I will show you this one, lock camera to view, a little bit later. This is a handy one. And we also see the location of our 3D cursor, like this little thing with the white, red stripes around it. And here we can change its location and rotation, which I will show you in the next exercise. And this is something that you probably don't have. This is just because I installed the screencast keys, so you can actually see which shortcuts I'm executing. Okay, N, so it disappears at T and N. That's the two main shortcuts for the 3D view. And this also works in many other windows. So whichever window you have open, like in those it doesn't work, but in many of the other windows, T and N will have the similar effect in here. Okay, I go back into edit mode and I will select the two faces on the bottom. Oops, with Shift. Let me know if I'm going too fast, but I hope everybody's back to the same stage. I can tell I'm looking down, and I go E to enter, E to enter, E to enter, and we want 1, 2, 3, 4, so I have to do one more. And now we have the legs of our little man. And then we do the same for the two arms. E to enter, E to enter, E to enter, E to enter. And you will probably say, hey, can't I do both faces at the same time? Of course you can, but for simplicity, we'll just do it like this right now. I will show you later how to use the symmetry modifier, so you don't, you save half the work, more or less. Okay, and now we want to make a little neck. So this one we just extrude 1, so E1, enter. Then the next one we also just extrude 1, E1, enter, but I make it I want to make it twice the size, so I hit S2, enter. Hope you're like, let me know if somebody needs another second. Unfortunately, I can't see your screens. This would make it much easier.
Yeah, I need a second. Sorry.
Yeah. Let me know if it doesn't make sense. If you lose.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. If you tell me where you're stuck or what's not working, then I can help you.
How much boxes do you need?
It's like 4 for the legs, 4 for the arms, and then 1 that is only 1 unit high for the neck, and another one that is 1 high for the base of the head, and we scale it by the factor 2. I should put all of this on the website as well, including all the shortcuts. But since I had extrude somewhere further up, I thought I don't need to repeat it. But it would make sense, so you can, whenever somebody gets lost, they can just follow the steps written down. Let me know when you're ready. quick peek where everybody's doing. So we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. Lucia is ready. 15, 19. That's okay. Okay, Gerhard is also ready. I guess we just continue, no? So the head, we do it 2 units, so E to enter. And for the tip, we make a E1 enter and an S 0.5 enter. And you should have something that looks like this.
Sorry, Ferdi. 2 for the head?
2 for the middle part is 2, and
Okay.
the bottom and the top are just 0.5. You can also eyeball it. It's not critical. It's just for showing you that you can be very quick because you don't have to do the point and click all the time.
Sorry, out of curiosity, just found out that this detects your gestures. So if you do it like this, it will detect.
Yeah, you can even configure it so you write an S and it will do scale or. But yeah, I used to try all those gimmicks. Actually, Blender was one of the first programs I ever used that had like gesture stuff. Yeah.
I was talking about WebEx.
Ah, okay.
It does it like this.
Okay. Okay. Is everybody ready? It's. I wish I could see you all, so you can just nod, but yeah.
How to select a single box?
How to select a single box?
Yeah, how to select the whole box, as one of the a whole box.
You know what? I will just do this again so that we catch up with everybody that didn't follow it. So I go to Object, Add Mesh Cube. I enter Edit mode with Tab. I go to Face Select mode and select one face.
Mm-hmm.
I do E to enter in one direction, and then E to enter in the other direction. Don't forget Shift middle mouse for panning, middle mouse for orbiting, and Shift more than one face. E to enter 3 times. So that we get 4 segments. Then select the bottom 2 for the legs. Again, 4 times. Then do one arm. And the other one. Okay, then I'm at the head, so I just do E1 enter, Lindbergh, once again, E1 enter, then E1 enter again, scale S2 enter, E2 enter, E1 enter, and S0.5 enter. Okay, I hope everybody, like, this was of course too fast, but yeah. Okay, so I leave edit mode by hitting the tab key. I will make you a bit smaller here. And I go to the key symbol and I add a modifier which is called subdivision surface. And I increase the level to 2. And I right click on the model and say shade smooth. And here we have our little guy. Yeah, be careful, don't put those settings too high. This might crash your computer. And the render settings, we don't care yet because we're not rendering everything. Okay, and the next thing I wanted to show you, if you go back into edit mode, You can choose any of those modes. I go to vertex select. I hit AA for deselecting everything. And I wanted to show you that you can use Control R for making a loop cut. So if you hit Control R, nothing happens yet. It only seems to do something once you move your mouse over the model. And so whichever edge you select, it will make a cut perpendicular to this one. So if I select one of the vertical edges, it makes a horizontal cut. And if I take a horizontal one, it makes a cut in this direction. And if I would turn the mouse wheel now, I could make many cuts in one. But I just want to make one, and I left click once, and then I can still move this one forth and back. And you can see the closer I move it to the other vertices, the more how do you say, cylinder-like it gets. So I do the same over here, and yeah, this way you can tighten up the edges a little bit, and we could do the same for in whichever other place, and this helps you to, like, I don't know, make him a bit more squarish. But yeah, this is not something I would do to this model. And as always, you can right click and it will cancel your command, and Control Z to undo it. You could also give it a try at making him some feet. So I select those two and extrude what looks good. Yeah, 2 looks okay. And but they look a bit like too roundish here. So I could throw in another edge loop and make them a bit more squarish. And we could also give it a flat bottom by doing this. If you wanna make really tight creases so that it looks like a 90-degree angle, then you could drag this all the way down so that they're identical to the ones on the bottom. But that's not very good practice. Like if you wanted to make those flat at the bottom, you would use edge weights that I will show you in a moment.
So, sorry to interrupt, Ferdy. It's possible to repeat the smoothing and after making gingerbread guy.
Yeah. So I go back a few steps. So just after applying the subsurface modifier, it looked like this. So you can see all the facets. And if you want to get rid of those facets, you right click and say shade smooth. Just a right click context menu. Yeah, and then all we did was like throwing in some loop cuts. And yeah, I think that's it for this lesson. I want to show you how to make it look nice, and I want to render it as well. But this time I decided I want to throw in like some more stuff just for the basic modeling. So we learned about the Control R for the face cut loop. Oh yeah, we can also do a knife cut. So I put myself in front view or in, oh, my model is not in the right orientation. So one doesn't show me the front, but the side. Normally I would change this now, but it doesn't matter. So we just use number 3 for looking from the side. And if I hit K, the cursor switches to a little knife symbol, and I can just draw a line, and it will cut the mesh wherever I cross it. And if I hit enter, this command is finished, and you can see that I made these kind of weird cuts in my mesh. And we can also see that it didn't cut all the way through. Here the same, only cut on the front side. If we wanted to cut all the way through, we either have to activate here this X-ray mode, or we hit Z and then go to wireframe. And now if I do a knife cut, it should cut all the way through. No, it doesn't. It used to, but it doesn't anymore. So let's investigate. You see this line down here? So this gives you like a bunch of settings, yeah? So first of all, enter to confirm, escape to cancel, left mouse button to start the cut, and left mouse button to close the cut. So if you make like a circle or something, E would make a new cut. Control seems to snap the midpoints. Let me try. So if I hold control, you see it snaps to the middle of my edge. And ignore snap is off. Angle constraint is off. If you have a menu like this and you want to see it completely, you have to middle click and scroll the window. And I see that cut through is off. So if I hit Z, now cut through is on. And if I do a cut now, it will cut through the front side and the back side. Okay, this is different now. Okay, I think that's more or less all that I wanted to show you with the gingerbread man.
Sorry, Ferdy, didn't understand where you activated the cut through. Sorry.
K, the letter K for knife cut.
And then cut through option?
If I hit K, I get this window here on the bottom, and then for the cut through, it's Z, the letter Z.
Oh, I don't believe I'm seeing the window on the bottom.
You don't see the line on the bottom?
Oh, the line the line.
Like on the very bottom, there's this little bar that lists all kinds of constraints, and one of them tells you where the cut through is.
Okay, I see the bar now. Sorry.
Yeah. I think you can also, once you have the cut, you could like middle mouse button for panning. No. Okay, there's more features hidden somewhere that I don't know yet, but for the moment, knife cut is not something I use a lot, but sometimes it's handy. And we learned about the X or backspace for deleting. You can also, if you're, let's say I have a bunch of vertices selected, like right now, I can hit the H key for hiding them. And this just makes them disappear for a moment. If I want to show them again, I hit Alt H. And yeah, this comes in handy sometimes. I think in the next example, I can show you. And by the way, this also works in object mode and in other windows. It's always H for hiding and Alt H for showing, which can be very confusing. Like Blender is one of those programs, you don't press a key if you don't know what it does, because it will do something for sure. And yeah, so we have all the selection modes, and we could quickly have a look into proportional edit. And I also wanted to show you how to loop select. Let me see. Oh, this is not documented, so I have to make myself a little note for loop selecting. Just a second. And so loop selecting works by holding the Alt key and then clicking on an edge. On Linux, this gives you a problem because Alt left click will open like a menu. I think on a Mac it might be not Alt, but the corresponding Mac key. I'm sorry. Like if you have any difficulties with like other operating systems, I think on Linux most of the stuff should work apart from the Alt key. And on Mac, I'm not so sure anymore, and I don't have a Mac right now. So let me know if some of the commands don't work for you, and tell me which operating system you're running, so I can put it in the documentation. So yeah, to make this easier for the next ones. Okay, so give it a try to Alt click on different edges and see what happens. And once you have an edge loop selected, you can hit the S key, for example, let's make a little Superman, or we can choose both of them. So if I hold Shift and Alt and click on another phase loop, I get both of them selected. And we could, but then it doesn't scale. Now it scales like inwards, outwards, because it goes in all directions. But I could scale only in Z direction. So I can just increase the biceps. I could also scale in all directions minus the Y direction by hitting S and then Shift Y. So this will, like if you Shift X or Shift Y, it will move in order. It will scale or rotate in all directions minus the one that you pressed last. Okay, I think this is explained in here a bit further down. And since we're here already, we can also do the Alt S. So Alt S will scale along the normal, which basically inflates, deflates your object. You have to imagine that like on each vertex, there's a normal on each face, which normally points outwards. If it points inwards, then something is wrong, but there's a command for recalculating so that they all point outwards. But you also have a face for each vertex, a normal for each vertex, and there's actually 3 of them. So there's lots of little like indicators that show you where your normal is. If I'm quick enough, I can also, if you go here to the object data properties, oh, here they are, and this was where we selected our auto smooth, but if I do the same, not in here, but in the transform panel view. No, I'm sorry, I have to look this up, but there is a way where you can actually visualize all the normals, the face normals as well as the edge, the vertex normals. But yeah, in the end, Alt S scales like perpendicular to the surrounding faces to make it easy, with the effect that it inflates, deflates. Okay. And there's another one that I wrote down, which is the it's called the proportional edit tool, which is up here. If you click on this little icon, it will affect more than just your selection, but there's like an influence area around it. So if I just move this up and down, and now I scroll my mouse button towards me, then this influence area gets bigger and it starts moving not just the selection, but proportionally, with a proportional fall off, it also selects like vertices around it, which is great for making a little dancing man here, like woo. And you can also change the shape of this fall down. So if you make it a sphere, it will fall off quicker at the edges, whereas the smooth like slowly fades out. And you could also make it random. So if I GZ now, like all my vertices will move like random amounts together with my selection or not. And the hotkey for this is the O key. So just by hitting O, you can turn this on and off. Make sure that it's off by default. Like if you have it on and want to do something and it behaves weird, and double check that this one is off. Okay, I think that's it. If there's no further questions, I would continue by giving hands to the little guy. Are you ready? Okay, I assume so. So, like normally I invented this idea just making a hand, but since we have a guy already, we could also give him hands. And on the way, I could explain you how to get rid of some of the geometry, because I want the hand to be more or less this size. But now we have a stupid edge loop in here that we don't need. So if you Alt click it for selecting it, you can use to edge and then tell it to Where is it? So those where I only know the shortcut. So if you go delete, yeah. So you go to if I just delete it with the X key or with the delete key, and I delete the vertices, I have a hole, which is not what I want. So I go back. I want the vertices to disappear, but to keep the faces. So if I hold X and then say dissolve vertices, it will do something unexpected. I don't know why. I will try again. X. No, I have to go to dissolve edges. And now this was kind of the undo of my previous extrude. I will do the same over here. So X, dissolve edges. Does this work? No complaints, so I continue. I want to select those 4 vertices. I could just, yeah.
I am completely at a loss because the Alt key doesn't work on my Mac, and I have no clue what to do. So whatever you do now, I'm just still working on selecting more than one vertex. So
Damn. Like let me see. Like if you
is there
select
another way to select the 4 vertices?
I'm sure there's an easy solution.
Probably, but I can't find it right now.
Yeah.
I'm trying all the buttons and everything goes wrong, and then I go back and I start again. And
Damn it. But there's another way. If you just select an edge, so I'm in edge select mode, and then I go to select. I can tell select loop, edge loop, and this will have the same effect than alt clicking on it. So I select an edge, go to select loops, edge loops. Then we have all of them selected, and yeah.
Yeah.
So actually, I will do this. I want to select this edge loop. So I select this face, select loop edge loop, and it doesn't work because 4 is not enough for defining an edge loop. I have to just manually select all the 4 edges. Of course, if you're in vertex select mode, it's the same thing. And so I want to move myself back a little bit. If I'm not in the right view, I would have to hit G and probably.
So I selected all these this plane now, or well, the loop. And what do I do because I missed that?
Oh, it's just a quick way of selecting vertices that are in a loop.
I understand that, but you did something after you selected it.
I scaled it, for example, or you can also rotate it, and this was just for the fun of it. Oh, I dissolved it. I hit the X key, and then I chose dissolve edge, so I could remove the number of segments that my arms had. So now my arms only have 3 segments.
Thank you. I'm with you again. I'm working on this other arm, but I'm with you again. Thank you.
Okay. And if I select the other side, I can also move it back by, whoops, I didn't get all of them. Remember, if you're not in wireframe mode or in the X-ray mode, it will only select the stuff that you're actually seeing. If I am in wireframe mode, it will select everything, even on the side that is not visible. So either you toggle between wireframe and not, or you leave this X-ray mode on, which I think is a bit ugly, so I don't use it too much. Yeah, but it's a matter of taste. So if I want to select those 4, I either have to rotate my model so I can see all 4 of them and then do my box select, or I quickly switch to wireframe mode and then I can select it from any angle. And I just move it back by 2 units. I use the middle mouse button trick because somehow, here, a Y direction. So G, Y minus 2. Oops, 2. Minus 2. Yeah. So now I kind of skipped a segment in my arms. Then I go to face select mode. This one is already selected. I select this one as well, and I scale it by the factor 0.5 in the Z direction. So S 0.5. Oh, I forgot to hit the Z key. So I right click or hit escape, and I do SZ 0.5, and now I get like, instead of squares, I get like little rectangles. We're gonna make some gigantic hands for the little guy. Okay. And so I select only one face, and let's extrude it 1.5. Okay. And I guess from now on we can just like estimate our sizes. Like what I want to end up is something like this hand that you see, and this is the first part already. So I just like extrude this a little bit, which is going to be the base for the thumb. And now I switch to edge select mode. So now you have to pay attention for a second. We need the top and the bottom edge, and we want to subdivide it, which is adding more segments. And so I go to edge, and then they should be subdivide. And I get this little window down here. If I want to have it bigger, I have to click on the little triangle on the left of subdivide. And I want to make 9 cuts. Oh no, I want to make 4 fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4. So its number of cuts is 3. And then I just left click and it will make the cuts. Let me know if this, if you're all in the same spot.
Please just repeat how you get to subdivide.
So
The shortcut.
Yeah, I select the top and the bottom edge. I have to be in edge select mode. And then I go to edge and subdivide. The shortcut used to be W, but this changed. So right now I only know the menu edge subdivide. And then I have to check down here where this little subdivide menu opens. And then I can choose 3. Okay. Then I switch to face select mode. I select my 4 fingers, so to say. And actually I make them a bit smaller. I think they feel better when they're kind of squarish instead of like rectangular. Yeah? Scale Z and just move it down a little bit. And now I want to extrude it, but if I hit extrude now, I will get like one big square finger. But I want like many individual fingers, so I go to face and then say extrude individual faces. I'll let this sit for a second. I select the faces of the fingers, and then I go to face, extrude individual faces. And now I'll move my mouse out a little bit, and we get, actually I just move it very little, almost squarish. So we get like these 4 little knobs. And if I decided that I want them all a little bit smaller, if I just hit S, it will just scale in all directions. Or if I hit SZ, it will only scale them up or down. SX will scale all of them together. But I want to scale them so that there's like a little gap in between the cubes. And for doing that, I have to change my my transform orientations to local. To local, I think that's it. Oh no, sorry. I have to change this one right next to the transform orientations, which is what's the name of it? It's called the pivot. So this is the point around which all my transformations take place. We will also use this in the next example. Normally it's on bounding box center, but I want it to be my individual origins. So now, since these are like separate faces, each one has its origin. So if I select individual origins up here and I do a scale, you can see how they all scale smaller independently from each other. Okay, so up here, right next to the transform orientations, is the transform pivot point. There it's written. And we can put this to whatever we want. In the next example, we will use the 3D cursor. Bounding box center is just like whichever weird shape you have, you can draw a square around it. And the center of this square is going to be your transformation pivot. 3D cursor is obviously our little guy down here. And individual origins is just the center of each of the selected objects. Median point is the one down here, which is like the object center, which we will also explore in more detail. And active element, this is something like Blender, in addition to selecting, there's always one active object. And this used to be more visible in previous Blender versions. But you can see that all of those are orange, but this one is a bit more, more whitish. So that's my active element. So if I chose the active element up here, it would scale, the center of rotation or the center of scale would be this face. So if I do an S now, you can see how it is oriented by the middle of the active object. And you can switch active objects just by clicking on something else, which will always the last selected object is the active object. So for some operations, the order in which you select your faces makes a difference.
I'm sorry, I'm still behind here. I'm trying to subdivide the part where you make the fingers, but my fingers seem to be 4 cuts like a pie. So yeah, here, this. How do you make the 4 fingers next to each other?
Just a sec. So your face looks more or less like this.
Yeah, kind of. It's a very long arm at the moment. But that doesn't matter. I don't care.
Yeah, it's not about the beauty. It's about like, yeah. So you select 2 edges.
Only 2 edges you select. I selected the plane. That's I understand again.
Only the 2 edges. Yeah. And then you go to edge and then subdivide.
Yeah, I did that, but I selected 4 edges, so it was making weird fingers.
Okay. And yes. So once we have it subdivided, we want to extrude, but individually, which is in face, extrude individual faces. Like if you just hit extrude, it will just make one more block, which doesn't help us. But if you go to face, extrude individual faces, you get like single fingers. And I just extrude a very little, scale it down in Z direction a little bit. And then I want to scale all of them a bit smaller, which was the trick with like selecting the transform pivot up here. And I choose individual origins. So now I can scale them all together. And let's say I want to move those down a little bit, which would, I could try alt clicking on it, which I was hoping selects the whole loop. It doesn't. And there's one more selection method that I forgot to explain. And if you select something and then control click on somewhere else, it will select the shortest path between those 2 clicks. So if I want to select this row quickly, I can select the first one and then control click on the last one, and it will select everything in between. And I can GZ and move it down. And if I want to select all of those, probably control, first I have to deselect everything by Alt A. And then I can probably just do my control, shift right click, which gives me my selection thingy. And now I have those selected again. And I can do another extrude. And yeah, I guess now we just go to face select mode and we move out the middle finger a bit more. And the ring finger just a wee bit. And actually we can make this one a bit longer. Yeah, it's not gonna be a perfect hand. Like modeling a proper hand is work of a day for somebody like me. But it's just so you get an idea. Okay, and now I want to extrude out the thumb, and I see that like this base doesn't look right for a thumb. Like this vertex is too high, and it's at a weird angle. It doesn't come out right angle. So I switch to top view by hitting 7, and now I can see here's my thumb, and maybe I hit R for rotating this a little bit, and now I get a base that looks a bit more thumb-like. And maybe I scale it in Z direction a little bit. And then I do my E for extruding it out. And maybe I want to give it like a little bend, like in this here. So I go to 7 again, and I rotate this one a little bit, and I do another extrude. Okay, this thumb looks horrible. But yeah, you already know you can Alt left click on stuff for selecting face loops and scale them down a little bit. Oh, and I missed one. And maybe I want to select all the fingers. And for making sure that I select all of them, I go to frame, and then I draw my B for box select and move them out a little bit more. And then Z6 again for being back into our regular shaded view. Okay, I guess you would say that this looks horrible, and I guess you're right. I will make them a bit shorter, maybe with C for circle select. Doesn't get those here hidden. Okay, and I GX them a little bit. GY them so they don't look as freaky as before. Okay. And if I wanted to make some fingernails, I would use our freshly learned shortcut Control R for loop select. Where was it? Knife cut, loop cut, Control R. And it always starts in the middle, but then I can move it. And I make a little loop cut for the fingertips. Okay. And if you wanted to make a fingernail, we could just like take this top face, extrude it, cancel the extrude, and scale this a little bit down. So we get something that looks a little bit like a fingernail. Of course, I could move it. If I move it down, it would get flat. If I move it up, it gets a bulge on top. Maybe I make another extrude and scale it down and move this one up a little bit. Well, but this is up to you. I just wanted to show you that there's ways of refining the geometry just by making extrudes and scales and so on. And I think I will leave it at this point because I feel that this is already a lot. And if you want to end up with a good-looking hand, you're gonna curse a lot. So yeah, maybe let's just leave it at this point for the hand, and maybe let me show you some more general advices. So like selecting loops is something that you use constantly, and actually if you look at somebody, like anybody that models something professionally, they will pay very close attention to where the loops are. So if I Google for face loop, I should get a lot of results of topography of faces where you can see how they laid out their loops. And yeah, for some reason my internet is terribly slow. Oh no, here it is. It is terribly slow. And so for people that model and animate, what they call the flow of edge loops, like you can see them like putting arrows and stuff. This is super important because if you want to make an eye twink, and you can just select the loop around the eye with one click and then just scale it for making the movement, then that's a lot easier than if you have a base mesh where you have to spend a lot of effort in selecting stuff. So if you ever want to model a face, it's the same usefulness for anything you model. You pay very close attention to how you lay out your edge loops. And it's a good idea to look at other people's edge loops, because for something like the face, there's like, everybody does it the same. There's no big exceptions. Like most people have a ring around the eye. You can see this one here, the blue one. Then you have, and this one is scaled out until you get this big ring. And then you kind of have to like get to a mode where there's another ring around the mouth. And the nose is mostly just, there's no ring around it. It's just like extruded. Yeah. We could have a look for how to properly model a hand. And yeah, so people get very obsessed with edge loops up to the point where they draw it on their face. Actually, not sure if I ever was drunk enough for drawing edges on my face, but you will start seeing edges and edge loops in mostly everything. So if I look at a car, I'm also like, oh, where's the edge loops? So yeah. So here you can see like this one reduced everything to just a few rings. But that's probably a good way of laying out your hand. And you can also see it in this one. And you can also tell that ours is like completely different. So like that's not a good topology to work with. You might have to go in there and delete stuff and put in more edge, make the loop cuts until you get something that looks a bit more pleasing. But just as a quick fix, let's switch to top view, hit Z and go to wireframe. So we can select some stuff and, for example, just scale it a bit in X direction and move it a little bit so that the hand doesn't look as horrible anymore. And well, you know, you have all those other tools like the proportional edit and yeah. 3D modeling is a lot about moving vertices around. So this is, you will spend a lot of time just moving those little dots from one corner to the other. So if you properly want to model a hand, you really have to touch each one of those and put it in the right place. For modeling a hand, I wouldn't want my fingers to be just squares. I want them at least to be like hexagonal, so I can like change its profile a bit more. And yeah, but for modeling something like, let's see, for modeling something like this, you have to individually select each vertex and move it to the right spot. But something like sculpting might make your life easier, and I hope we'll get to sculpting today as well. I guess we'll do a little break at 7:30, and then let's see how we advance. If everything goes well, we make it all the way over a chair and to a crazy-looking Suzanne. That's like my aim for today. And at the very bottom, we're gonna play a little bit with the sculpture. Okay? So we're still, of course, now like we're missing the other hand. And the easiest way for making the other hand is by going to front view, side view in my case. This was done badly by me, but now I keep it because if you followed, you'll have the same problem. And I'm missing a line in the middle. So I hit Control R and I make an edge loop right in the middle. And I'm very careful not to move my mouse left or right. I just click once and then click again. This gives me a cut right in the middle. Hands up, who's at the same point? I see one hand. I should be able to see you, like you should be able to virtually raise your hand, but I also don't have enough screen space for showing this. Next time I'll be better prepared. We make a proper class. So if nobody complains, I would assume that you all managed to make a loop cut in the middle. Control R is the shortcut. And then I switch to wireframe mode or click on the little X-ray button. I deselect everything just by clicking somewhere off or hitting A twice. And I do a box select with the B key, and I select everything on the left side of the model, up to here. And since we have the wireframe, it selects the back side as well. And now I can just hit delete or X and delete the vertices. Check. I hit Z again for switching back to solid view. And I hit Tab for leaving the edit mode. Okay, no complaints so far. And I'm going to use the symmetry modifier, which is down here where the little wrench is, where we already applied our subdivision surface modifier. And I'll add another modifier, which is called mirror. I just leave this for a second because I know like somebody is a second behind. Let me know if I'm going too slow. But from experience, I know like, especially if you make selections in menus. So it's in where the little key is. You click on Add Modifier, Mirror.
Ferdy, I will be watching this tomorrow anyway, so I'll be watching from now on.
Okay, I'll just go ahead. And now you see nothing happened, but this is because we chose the wrong axis. So we have to choose the Y-axis here. So now I get two hands, and this is constantly active. So if I switch back with Tab to my edit mode, and I make a change here, it will occur on the other side at the same instant. If I leave edit mode, it looks as if it was just one mesh, but actually it's two. If you didn't split it exactly in the middle because you moved your mouse a little bit while doing the loop cut, there might be a seam in the middle. And if you want to get rid of the seam, there's like a merge distance. Like I can simulate this by just selecting the edge loop and moving this out a little bit. So now I get this stupid seam that I don't want. But luckily Blender has this merge feature. So if I increase the distance here, it will just merge everything in the mirror plane that is under this distance. And so at 0.4, it's already snapping those vertices together and cleaning up the normals, and it looks as if nothing happened. But I actually have like a little gap. Yeah. Okay, so this was a novelty, my first gingerbread man with hands. I hope you enjoyed this, and maybe as a quick interruption, let's look at the save dialog. So if I go to File, Save or Save As, let me just check where I am. So you can navigate like in most Windows programs or Mac or Linux programs. You have on the left side you have like some preset folders. Now finally also network folders appear. They used to be hidden in Blender. You have your recently used items, and you can just go up a layer, and I think I already have a folder for the Blender workshop, Blender course, and down here I can enter the name. Actually, it doesn't look like a gingerbread anymore. And I wanted to show you one more little trick. So if I put a number at the end of my file name, either just 1 or 01 or 001, and then there's this little plus button. And actually right now it doesn't work. But Blender has the ability of recognizing stuff as a number, and somehow this must have changed. But usually if there's, or let me just, I will save this once. And now if I do file save as, and I hit the plus key, can you see the number increasing? I can hit plus and minus, and this will just automatically increment the number at the end of my file name. If it's 01, it will also do like 23, and it will all be nicely aligned. So this is like a very handy feature that I would like every program to have, because especially for like images and like I mostly work like iteratively. So if my file breaks or if I did something stupid, then I still have like the previous versions. So I usually save all my stuff with a number at the end, and each time I save, I increment this number by 1. And in Blender, this is super easy because you just hit the plus key. You don't have to like use the keyboard for selecting exactly the last digit and then deleting it. And yeah, you just hit plus, enter, and you're done. Okay, this much on saving. Oh yeah, by the way, Blender has a very awesome file format, and it's still compatible with the very first versions of Blender. Most 3D software gets incompatible after like the first version upgrade, but somehow Blender managed to keep everything consistent. So even though Blender 25 years ago looked completely different, you can still, like, it's upwards compatible. Downwards not always, because there's features that didn't exist like a while ago. But everything that was working in the older versions will also work in the newer ones most of the time. But I can still open like super old files, and I never had any problem. Like, this is just awesome. Like in most other software, it's a nightmare.
Ferdi, maybe something linked with this. I sent you an email regarding a question from my friend. Have you seen that?
Let me quickly check.
I don't know if he is also, Mladen, is he online now or not? But he had a question about Allplan software that he uses.
Allplan?
Allplan, yeah. And he would like to import something from that into Blender.
Ah, yeah.
Is that no big deal, or?
Let me see. What was the Allplan? The name rings a bell. Allplan. Allplan is a Portuguese milling machine company.
Maybe I spelled it wrong. Just a second.
Oh, yeah, I didn't get an email yet, but if you send me, I will.
It's also in the Telegram also. Sorry, maybe I sent it in Telegram.
Ah, Telegram. Okay, I have too many apps now, and I just closed my Telegram. But I will answer it afterwards. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess I should share my screen again. So this is the Allplan, I thought, but yeah, no.
All like in all, ALL plan.
I want one of those.
Allplan. And It's architecture software. It's very likely. The question is which format to use, because Blender, there's a lot of different ones. Like this is probably a NURBS software, so you can export it as a mesh and then edit the mesh in Blender. But that's different than editing in Allplan. But yeah, I will have a look and tell you what the options are. Okay, so let's start by making a new file. So Control N or File New. Just let me put those next to each other. And so what I want to build is a chair. It should be easy. So File New General. And now we know that like we see our little cube, and I want to make this the table base. So I want to scale it in X and Y direction. And what we just learned is if I hit S and then Shift Z, it will scale in those two directions at the same time. But that's not necessary. We can also use the N for the numeric panel. And then here in dimensions, I just enter 20 and 20. Don't forget to hit enter. And now we have a rectangle that is like 2 units high and 20 in X and 20 in Y. This is going to be the base of our chair. Okay. And so in the next step, I want to add legs to the chair. And I will show you several different ways of doing this. And so the aim of this exercise is not showing you how to model a chair. It's more like showing you all the different ways you could do it. So we just saw that we can change object size in the transform panel, which was here, the dimensions. We could also use the S Shift Z, so we could scale it in 2 axes instead of 3. And if I add a cube now, so I go to add or hit Shift A, mesh cube, and it's going to be added right in the middle at where our 3D cursor is. And it's kind of hard to see, and so I have to move it. So I hit the G key, so I can move it to somewhere where I can actually see it. And now I would have to move it like exactly to the edge. And of course I could go through like all the different views for using my GZ and whatnot for getting it right. But I could, well, actually what we know, like if I do Alt G, so it puts it back in the middle. If I do a GX and I look at the numbers up here, so I can, it's up here, I can see the distance, and I guess it's going to be 10 for moving it up to this corner. And then, oh, no, it should have been 9, so I have to go G minus 1. Yeah? And then I can move it in the other direction. Again, 9. And then I would have to move it down a bit, GZ2. No. Or you can also use back, like if you type the number during the transform and you mistyped, you can just hit backspace and then try again. So I go -2, and now it would be exactly at the corner. But yeah, but that's a lot of steps to go through, and I will show you easier ways of doing the same thing. So like if you manage to put it at the corner, great. If not, don't worry. We just add another cube, but this time in a slightly different way. So I select the table, I hit the tab key, and I select the vertex where I want to insert my table leg. And maybe you remember that Shift S was the shortcut for bringing up this menu where I can reposition my 3D cursor, and I want to put it to the active position, cursor to active. or cursor to selected. In this case, it's the same because it's only one object. So now you see my 3D cursor snapped from the middle position to the position of this vertex. And now I can go into view, and I can see the exact position of my 3D cursor. So it's in x10 and y minus 10. But since my default cube is 2 units by 2 units, and it's in the center, I would have to like move it a little bit inwards by 1 unit so that it actually fits. So instead of 10, I make it 9. And instead of minus 10, I make it minus 9. And you can see that like my 3D cursor is now like at this edge, but just one unit away from the border. And if I leave edit mode now, like I could just add another cube right now, but then it would be the same object, and I want separate objects. So I hit the tab key for leaving the edit mode, and I add another cube, add mesh cube, and now it sits exactly at the position where I wanted it. It's just 1 unit too high up. We should have changed this one here to -2, but we can quickly solve this by hitting GZ -1, enter, and then it's at the corner just like the other one. But you will say, oh my God, so much trouble just for getting a box in the right place. And don't worry, there's another way. Probably there's another 100 ways, but I will show you one more. So I select one of the cubes.
Sorry, Ferdi, before you start that one, just the shortcut to move the cursor.
I moved it by going here to the first I selected a vertex in my mesh.
No, just the shortcut. Just the shortcut.
There's no shortcut, but you go you open the numeric panel with N, and then under View 3D Cursor you can put the coordinates.
But is there one of those menus where you say how do you activate that menu that says cursor to somewhere or somewhere to cursor?
Shift S.
That was what I was looking for. Thank you.
I will write this down to put it once more in here. Shift tab. No, there's no Shift S in there. Yeah. Okay, so the next way of doing the same thing is I could just add another cube or just duplicate this one. And duplicate, the shortcut for duplicate is Shift D. I could also go to Object, and I'm sure there's a duplicate somewhere. But yeah, Shift D is duplicate, and by default it just moves in the plane. I could hit my X or Y keys or to move it only in one direction. And I just roughly move it to where I want it. And even if you have it like somewhere completely else, it doesn't matter. And I hope I put the shortcut in here. Ah yeah, Shift S is cursor to selected. Actually, it's already in there. But the one that I wanted to show you is the snapping. And I will just quickly search for it. Yeah. So you remember that the O key was turning this one on and off. For turning this one on and off, it's Shift Tab. You see? Shift Tab on, Shift Tab off. I know. Okay, I can only turn it on with the shortcut. Right, you can just click it. Oh yeah, Shift Tab. Now it works. So this activates the snap functionality of Blender. And if you open the little tab right next to it, and you can see that there's different things to snap to. Increment snaps to the grid positions. Like since right now we are perfectly in the grid, we could just snap to grid. You can snap to vertices, edges, faces, volumes, and edge centers and edge perpendiculars. What you want right now is the vertex snap. And this is the one I use most. And in order so if I move away, this window will close again. And in order for this to work properly, I kind of have to hover over the vertex I want to start my transform. Select the cube, obviously, and then I hit the G key. And now if I move it, it will snap to vertices. And right now it doesn't snap the way I want it, so I try. That's weird. Okay, it is snapping, but it's not snapping to the one that I want to snap to. And it keeps refusing. I don't know why. So I will just change my angle a little bit and try again. It is snapping, but snap is closest. Effect move, yeah, should be fine.
It snaps to edge like with.
Yeah, normally this works fine for me. This is the first time I'm having problems with this snap. But well, since I know that this is 2 units, I can just move it 2 units in X direction. So G, X, 2. And this will have the same effect. Let me try the next one. I duplicate it and I hover in the right position and doesn't want to snap after it. Is the snap working normal for you? This is so weird. It's always snapping to the wrong one. Yeah. Anybody else having problems with the snap?
Yeah, for me, snap almost always does not work well. There's some add-on in Blender that tried to fix this one.
Yeah.
Because it's just weird snap in Blender. It does not work like in CAD softwares.
Yeah.
Random.
You see, now it works. For me, it's working now. I don't know. Now it's going to the wrong one again.
It works if you choose edge.
N?
I agree. If you choose the edge, it works.
Yeah. If you choose edge, it works.
Yeah. Well, normally this doesn't give me any trouble. I always thought that it makes a difference. Like if you start moving, that it kind of selects the vertex that you're closest to snap to. And yeah, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Right now it works, but I guess it's the same as the last. Yeah. Okay. So now we have 4 boxes at each corner, but they're a little bit short. And you will say, okay, we can just scale them in Z direction. So I select the 4 of them and I do SZ, but this will scale them relative to their bounding box center, which is the one that we have selected here. No, actually it was individual origins, but each single origin is in the middle, so it scales up and down if I hit Shift Scale Z. So we need to find another way of scaling our boxes. And there's one very easy way, and I will show you the complicated one, because also quickly, like you don't have to follow this one. I will show you the easy way just in a second. The complicated one is to go, and I have everything selected, and I move it down, GZ -2, -1. So you see that everything moved apart from this little dot. If I move my box in edit mode, this little the center of the object stays in the same spot. So I moved it down 1. So if I leave edit mode, again, this point now will move together with the object. In edit mode, it stays still, and in object mode, it moves with the object. So if I do GZ1, it will also it will move back to its position. I changed in the center of the object from somewhere here to up here. And now if I do a scale, it will only scale downwards. So I could easily extend my legs. But there's an even easier way, which is using the 3D cursor. So right now my 3D cursor, I can check its position if I go to the numeric panel and then to view, and I can see that it's down by 1 unit. Yeah, so it's right at the bottom of our table plate. And if up here in the I turn off the snap. Don't forget to turn off your snap. In here, I could remember that before we changed it to default is bounding box center. If we tried individual origins, but this wouldn't help us. But if I choose 3D cursor, and now I select my 4 legs, I will go a bit slow because I know like selecting 4 objects, if you're not used to 3D navigation, might take a while. So I select my 4 objects, and since I change the transform pivot, if I do scale Z now, all legs will grow in the same direction and just downwards, not upwards. Because the center of our transform is now our 3D cursor, and since we're in only local transform in Z direction, it will only consider the Z coordinate of our 3D cursor, and since it's at 0 under the plate, the legs grow in a reasonable way. Okay. Make them longer. Doesn't matter. It's just a matter of taste. So you can make the any way you want. I still hear clicking and mouse moving, so I guess I'll go a bit slower. Yeah, that's good. Like I can hear Florian. That's why like I'm get at least a little bit of feedback.
I'm lost.
You lost?
Yes, I have to look the video again, I think, 3 times.
You started the chair?
Yes, I did, but I have problems to append, to align the boxes to the edges. I don't know why.
Okay.
Sometimes
Forget about the legs for the moment, because now we're gonna do the backrest. Just leave the legs alone and select the seat. And now instead of like we could have just extruded those legs, which would have saved us all the hassle of like selecting the transform orientation, median point, and whatnot. So now I want to show you a different way of like if we go to edit mode and we want to extrude like those just the backrest. There is no face that we could select. Of course, we could like go with Control R and make some loop cuts at the right point, but I want to do it in a different way. And I will make it extra complicated for explaining some additional like tricks. I know, actually we already did. I wanted to show you the face dissolve. Like if I select everything and subdivide it, everything will get cut up in little squares. And I wanted to show you the dissolve edge by removing those in the same way we did for the hands from the little man. But since we did this already, we can just use the same trick that we used for the hands. So we select just the face, not the whole object. And we go to edge, subdivide. Just selecting the top face in face select mode, like with this little thing. We go to edge, subdivide. And down here, there's this little thing that appears, and I hit the little mark. And I guess we have to do 9 cuts in order to get like 10 segments. So we have each one 2 units wide. So number of cuts is 9. And now we get lots of little faces that we can extrude if we wanted. Okay, so this time I'll make it right. I hit 1, so I know where front is. And then I rotate my view and I can remember this is front, this is back. Okay? And then I select those 2 faces and extrude them up. Just by any value you want. And I'll make another little extrude, but this time exactly 2 units high, so that we have a little square and we can make the connection bar. Is this going well?
Could you repeat where the subdivide was for the Oberfläche des Sitzes?
Yeah, so I go back. Now I just have the plate, the front face, and go to edge, subdivide.
Okay, thanks.
And then 9 times. And enter or left click for accepting it. And then I take those 2 faces and the edges, extrude them any amount up, and then extrude them 2 up. Now I want to bridge this gap in the middle, and probably the easiest way is to just select one of the faces and extrude it, and I can just get close, and it's 16. Yeah, of course, 16 minus 2 times 2. So I can just write 16 and boom, it's gonna fit perfectly on the other side. But there's a little problem with that because right now the front of my extrude has a face, and there was a face here already. And so now I have like 2 faces in the same place. I think if I go to this, where was it? This one here. You remember the X-ray mode? In X-ray mode, I can see that over here, there's no face. It's just a hole. By the way, in X-ray mode, like each face gets like a little mark in the middle. And I can see that here there is a mark in the middle, which means there's a face. Actually, there's 2 faces in the same spot. And probably the easiest way to get rid of this is by going to vertex select, select everything with the A key. And then I go to vertex and then merge by distance. Which is in mesh. So I go to mesh and then merge by distance. This used to be called remove doubles because there's like 2 vertices in the same spot. And there was a shortcut just for removing doubles that you would like frequently execute just for making sure that you don't have any double vertices. Now they changed the name to merge by distance. And if you select it, there's like a little menu that allows you to set the distance. So if I increase this value, it would, in the end, it would just merge everything into one spot. But if you put like a very, very small number, like the one that we have right now, it's only going to remove like vertices that are exactly on top of each other. And so once I do this, this face is gone. You see, it disappeared. I will. Any luck with this?
How to merge? Sorry.
You select everything, and then you go to mesh, merge by distance.
Okay.
It should also be like in the little documentation that I wrote. So remove doubles is mesh, merge by distance. Okay. That's it. No, not yet. Because I wanted to show you another little concept. I will go to the face select mode. I want to make a little arc that goes over the top. And there are several different ways we could make an arc, but I'm realizing that half an hour past our break. I completely forgot it. Should we have a little break or should I continue?
I'm for a short break.
Yeah, okay. Let's have a little break. Let's say we continue at like 8:05. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I will just continue with our beautiful chair. So I hit Z and solid, and I leave edit mode. And this is the chair we got right now. What we wanted to add.
Screen.
Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Just a sec. Share screen. Now you see me again, no?
Yep.
I'll make this one a bit smaller. Okay. Okay, so back to the chair, and we wanted to add an arc on top. And first, I will show you like the complicated way to do it, but it will again illustrate the purpose of the Shift S. So I select those two faces. Actually, I leave the X-ray mode, and I hit Shift S, cursor to selected. And if I have more than one object selected, the 3D cursor will jump to exactly the middle between those two faces. Yeah. So I select the two faces, Shift S, cursor to selected. Right? And then I select just one face, and I put myself in front view. No, actually, I will put myself. Actually, I will select the other one, just for making it easier. So I select the left one and put myself in front view. So it says front orthographic. And unfortunately, my 3D cursor is a bit up, so I did something wrong. So I have to select both faces again, Shift S, cursor selected, and now it should be exactly on top. Yeah, and I select only the left one, and I make sure that up here my transform pivot is the 3D cursor. So if I do an extrude now, and I cancel it by hitting escape or pressing the right mouse button, and then switch over to rotate by hitting the R key, my face will rotate around my 3D cursor. And I will enter a value manually. So I write 20, enter. And this way I could just like extrude the whole arc. So I go E, right click, R, 20, enter. Yeah. Of course, if I did it like just 5, it would be a bit slower, but I would get a higher resolution. But I'll show you how to get a higher resolution in a quicker way. But if you want, you can also just undo until you're back at no arc. But if you want, you can just try the E, escape, R20, enter, and extrude your way all the way to the other side. So E, escape, R20, enter, E, escape, R20, enter, E, escape, R20, enter. And I would have an arc. If I did this with a smaller value, it would be more detailed. And yeah, but this is just for showing you that this might be a way you want to go. And of course, here we have the double face now again. So I have to select everything, go to mesh, remove doubles, which now is merge by distance. Enter. It used to show somewhere how many vertices were merged, but this disappeared in the latest version.
Sorry, Freddy, can you repeat? I didn't get an angle at 20 degrees. I didn't see it. So I have the cursor, 3D cursor in the middle, and I press escape and right click, but I don't get the angle.
So you select a face.
Yeah.
It makes it easier if you're in front view. So it will only rotate in this plane. And then I do an extrude. So it would extrude it up, but I cancel it by hitting the right mouse button. And then I hit the R key. And then it will start like rotating around the 3D cursor. And this is where I input my value of 20. And now I could continue again with like E, right click, R, 20, enter. But if this is too complicated, just undo until you're back at this stage, because now I will show you a different way of doing the same thing. So I leave. Should I wait another second, or is this? Should I just continue?
It doesn't work. I press. I take the surface. Yes.
Yeah.
I choose the surface. I take E, K,
Yeah.
and then I have to click the right mouse button.
Yeah. So it will jump back, look as
Yes.
if nothing happened.
Yeah.
But now I hit the R key. And in this case, if you're in front view, it's just R. In my case, I would have to hit like the Y. So it only rotates around the Y axis. And then you can input the value just by typing the number.
No, it's doesn't extrude. It's only rotate.
Rotate.
Yeah, for me too, it only does the rotation. It kind of, when you do the escape or the right button, it goes back. It kind of but it never recovers the extrude value.
So I do
it keeps rotating on the same place.
Yes, except for me.
I do the extrude, then I cancel, then I hit the R, and then I hit the Y key, so it rotates around the Y axis.
But do you terminate the extrude before the cancel? Because the thing is that it comes back to the face and it just rotates there. It doesn't rotate on the previous version of on the previous position.
And try making a very small extrude, just like a little bit, and then hitting the R key. Oh, and make sure that up here you have the 3D cursor selected for the object transform pivot. Maybe this is the reason. Because if I have this on bounding box center, which is a default, and I hit R, it just rotates in place. But
then it might be that.
Yeah, but we want to have the 3D cursor selected up here. So now it will rotate around the 3D cursor in the Y direction. Yeah, so this one up here is important. Like it completely changes the way zoom, scale, rotate work. Okay, but
Yeah, that was the case. That was the case.
okay. So in whichever point you are, just undo until you're back at this one, and leave. Maybe I'll show you. No, like we could add geometry right here. Just Shift A, and I could add all my meshes. But it's easier if we leave edit mode. So I go back to object mode. My cursor is still in the middle between the two faces, and I hit Shift A, mesh, circle. Add mesh circle. And it will make a small circle appear, and I will use this little menu that appears on the bottom for changing various aspects of my circle. The first one is I want to change the radius. Like with the number of vertices, you could change the amount of subdivisions it has. If you put 4, you get a square. If you put 6, you get a hexagon. And if you put 200, you get an almost smooth circle. In our case, like any even number is fine. So I leave the 32, but I change the radius to 10. So you see now my circle goes from one to the other. And now I want to rotate the circle. And again, there's 10 ways of doing that. I'm just going to use, I hit the R key, which would rotate it around the 3D cursor, but in perpendicular to the screen. And then I hit the X key so that it only rotates around the X axis. And I want 90 degrees, so I type 90, enter. And now we should have a circle that is vertical to our backrest. Okay? And we're still in object mode, so I select the circle and switch to edit mode. And if I go to vertex, I can see all the 32 vertices that it created. And I want to extrude them inwards a little bit. So I hit E for extruding, which would give me like a tube. But I cancel it by right-clicking or by hitting escape. And then I scale it. And I scale it by a factor of 0.8. Enter. Any difficulties?
I'm sorry, how did you put the vertices visible?
Up here, right next to edit mode, you can choose between vertices, edges, and faces. Doesn't matter which one. Like the commands will work in either one. But here you can see all the vertices. Okay, and now I want to delete all the vertices below. So, I go to front view by hitting 1. And then I go to wireframe view with the Z key. And then I make B for box select. And I select all the vertices down here.
Ferry, can you please repeat to make a ring? I mean, I have the circle, but how did you make a ring?
Yeah, so I added mesh circle. It's already the right size. Then I rotate it around the axis.
So that's what I have. To make a ring, I mean, to make an inner ring.
Yeah, then I go into edit mode. I extrude and cancel, escape or right click. And now I hit S for scaling and I do 0.8.
Okay, thank you. I'll try.
Yeah. So select all the vertices, extrude, right click, S, 0.8, enter. And now I go and switch to wireframe with the Z key. I click somewhere for deselecting everything. And I do B for box select, and I select all the lower vertices. and now delete or X vertices before deleting all the lower vertices. Okay. And now I select all of them with the A key, and I extrude 2 units. So E2, enter. Switch back to solid, and this should give me like exactly the arc, but it's 1 unit too far back. So I look, green is the y-axis, so it's G, Y, -1, and now it's at the right spot.
Yes, I did. Like what?
Okay. Yeah, I hope this was somehow useful. Maybe one quick little thing. Obviously, our armrest is open at the bottom. Yeah, if I move it a little bit and I look down there, I can look in there. No, I can't. Okay, so then yeah, that's fine. Yeah, one thing, one more thing. If you want to make this one piece, I select the armrest and the arc, and I hit Control J. I think it's also here somewhere. Control J, join. Object join. And so now I have one object apart from the legs. And if I go to edit mode, I see everything. Yeah. But we didn't merge those vertices yet, so my armrest is still a separate piece. If I select one vertex and hit the L key or select linked, I think this is also somewhere here in my select all, join meshes. Oh, I forgot to select linked. I will put it. So select linked is a very useful shortcut. It's the L key. So just select one vertex, hit the L key, and it will select everything that is still separate from something else. And if I wanted to make this its own part again, I would hit the P key. P like separate. This one is kind of tough to get it, but yeah, P for separating stuff. And I could choose to separate only the selection by material or by loose parts. If you hit by loose parts, it will separate everything that is not fixed to your mesh. And I'm still in edit mode of the armrest. So if I leave edit mode, I can see, okay, now I have two objects again.
I missed why we were doing this. I was still working on getting my headrest at the right spot. But why were we doing L and P?
So we had this arc was a separate object, and if we wanted to unite it with the rest of the chair, we would hit Control J for joining it. And now this is one object, and if I go to edit mode, I see all the vertices and everything. And if I want to undo this, I could just select one vertex, select L for linked, and it will select the whole armrest, and I could use the P key for separating it again. It's the contrary of joining, so I can join objects or separate them.
Thank you.
Okay, so sorry to I'm struggling here with something. When I extrude the headrest, it gets empty. It doesn't have one of the faces, one of the main faces. Like I have everything right. I have all I have the arch, the face of the arch with all the faces. But when I extrude the face, it gets empty. It just gets like.
Yeah, but I'm going back until I ran out of undos. So I have to do it like this. So I select the edge loop here, and I shift select this edge loop as well, and I delete it. And now I should have something similar to what you're having now.
Okay.
Yeah. So I select everything, hit
Okay.
E for extrude, and no matter which way you extrude, it should give you geometry. But it doesn't.
Let me see again. Now it did. I was selecting face by face or with the box, all the faces. Maybe it was that.
Okay.
Maybe it was just considering the faces. Okay,
Yeah.
with an A is more safe. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. So yeah. So this is kind of what I wanted to get to up to here. I also wanted to show you the booleans. So let's say I wanted to 3D print this, and I want like little connectors between the pieces. Yeah, I'm not sure like this is gonna take. And you know what? I'll just make it very quick, and you don't need to follow. Just so you know, it's a bit complicated, but you can watch it later in the video. So I have one more thing that I wanted to show you is the local view. I think I shortly mentioned this last time. The new shortcut for the local view is either the numpad divider or you hit the tilde key. The tilde is the one that looks like a little triangle that goes up down, and this switches between local view and global view. And I think also the hash sign does the same. You know, the hash that looks like a piece from a fence. This also switches global and local. So if I wanted to act on just on this part, I would go to local view, go to edit mode, select this face, hit Shift S, cursor to selected, and now I have my 3D cursor right in the middle of this face. I go back to global view, and I hit Shift A and add a cylinder. And I make it a bit smaller, let's say 0.5. So now there's a cylinder somewhere hidden in here. If I go to wireframe mode, I can see it. I leave edit mode, and now I want to cut the cylinder away from the lower part and add it to the upper part. So I need add and one that I subtract. So I select the cylinder. I might have to go to wireframe mode for selecting it. And for some reason, this one is part of the other one, which I don't want. So I have to separate it. Okay, you see what, yeah? And so now I have 3 objects. But actually, I want a duplicate of this one. So I hit Shift D, which would duplicate it. But I cancel it. So now there's 2 objects at the same spot. And actually, what I want to show is the booleans, which is another modifier. So it's the wrench key again, and then I go to boolean. And booleans I can choose if I want the intersection, which would just give me what the 2 bodies have in common, the union or the difference. So I want to oh, and now I have this one selected, and I want to add this object. So I could choose union and select this little eyedropper and select the upper object. And now what I should get is a union of both objects. I can apply the modifier by clicking here on apply. It's this little drop down apply or Control A. So now this one and one cylinder are together, and now I want to cut this one away from the other one. So I select the lower chair, add the Boolean modifier. This time I go difference, and I select my little cylinder, and I apply the modifier, and now I should have a hole in this one. If I go back to solid mode, and I move this one up. Oops. Yeah, so this one has the pin added. You can see now it's one object with all its vertices. Oh yeah, one shortcut that I just caught myself using is the colon. Because just a second ago it was rotating in a weird way. If I select something and then hit the colon, it will now only rotate around this point, which makes it a lot easier to look at things. If I wanted to work over here, I would just hit the colon, and now I have full access. And yeah. And Blender leaves stuff behind, so there's one extra one, but now there's one that has a hole and one that has a pin. So this is the way you could like connect your objects if you want to 3D print them. Okay, if there's no further questions, I would show you a little example. And I will open a file that we made together with a company here in Camp Lindford. They are called EATV. And they make quads, like, you know, those four-wheeled motorcycles. And for the newest model, they made a 3D scan of, like, they use motorbikes from, how's it called, this Austrian company that makes crazy motorcycles. And they modify them. To facilitate this, and they scanned like the part before modifying it, and then they want to model this. And you see that the first like 100 megabytes in size. That's a heavy file. Like this computer can still handle it, but I made an already reduced version, which is only 20 megabytes. That's, by the way, that's the decimate modifier that allows you to reduce the number of vertices without destroying your model completely. So yeah, so this is the scan of the swing. If I go to edit mode, you can see that it has a whole bunch of vertices. You can zoom closer. You can see that this doesn't look so perfect. But if you want to know for sure, you execute a shortcut, which is it used to be the funniest shortcut of all of them. Control-Shift-Alt-A, but doesn't work anymore. And I haven't assigned a shortcut yet, but you can go to Select. Well, I'm just showing this. In a second, I will show you, we will do something together where you can practice this. And I go to Select All by Trait Non-Manifold. And non-manifold will non-manifold geometry is the contrary to printing. So if something is non-manifold, it doesn't have a volume, and which makes 3D printing a bit complicated. So whenever I have a file that I want to send to a 3D printer, I usually, first thing I do is I open it in Blender, I go to edit mode, and I select non-manifold. And if anything gets selected, I know that this has a problem. Nowadays, if you export like from FreeCAD or from Fusion or SolidWorks, most of your geometry is fine. But in the times where people were modeling with Google SketchUp, we had lots of models coming in that had non-manifold geometry. And even in NURBS programs like SolidWorks, if you mess up a little bit, you might get non-manifold geometry. So you should always run this check. And if I run this check here, you see, oh my God, there's a lot of non-manifold geometry. And if I look closer, I can see, oh yeah, there's holes and stuff in here. So in order to 3D print this, or in order to convert it to a NURBS object that I could use in Fusion, I have to get rid of all non-manifold geometry. And if you have a big scan, you will have to like concentrate on each of those areas individually. And one good trick is, again, you select one vertex and you hit the colon. And this takes there, and now you can look around and investigate what's the problem. And in this case, I would say that's a serious problem. Like you could try the good old trick with like selecting 3 vertices and then hitting the F key for making a face. But until you get this one fixed, you would have to create a lot of faces. And the way to go for something like this is a modifier that is called remesh. But this will take a minute or two on my computer, so I show you on this one, but on another model. And so that we can all do the same steps, I would ask you to open a new file and delete the default cube and add our beloved Suzanne. There we go. And we add a subdivision surface modifier. So it's the wrench, add modifier, subdivision surface, and I put it to a level of 2. But let's on 3. Okay. So now Suzanne looks all smooth. We can do the shade smooth, so it looks smooth as well. And now what I want to do is I want to apply the modifier. I think we did this just a second ago, but if I apply the subdivision surface modifier, I get a mesh in the whole resolution. Like if you don't apply it and you go to edit mode, you get this, you see all the this in this coarse mesh, while you have the subdivision surface active. Apply this modifier and I go to edit mode, I see all the detail that the subdivision surface modifier created. Okay? And if I go in there and just delete a random vertex, just X vertex, and now I have a little hole in there, which might be difficult to see if you don't know the right shortcuts. But now we know if you want to find this hole, you just have to go to select all by trait, non-manifold, and it will highlight exactly the place where we cut the hole. But it will also highlight the eyes. And you might wonder what's wrong there. And if you look closely, you can see that the eyes are actually separate objects. They're just stuck inside the head. So they're not actually part of the geometry. And if you use the trick with the L key, you can see that this is a separate mesh. Yeah? And now if we want to fix this for the hole, it's rather easy. I just select all the vertices around it. Just with Shift. Make sure that I have only those. Oh, I'm missing one. And now I hit the F key and it will create a new face that is exactly at the same spot. And my problem is solved. Suzanne is beautiful again. And if you want those edges back, you could use the knife tool and cut through there twice, and then it's back to the way it used to be. Okay, and I'm not sure. Yeah, I also want to reach the sculpting mode. So I will just quickly show you how I would fix the problem with the eyes, but you don't really have to follow in real time. So I said if I hit P and say by loose parts, both eyes will become their own objects. So I have one eye, the other eye, and Suzanne. And so from the point of view of this mesh, I just deleted the eyes. And now I want to select the ring that goes all the way around. One easy way would be select all by type. non-manifold, and then I just deselect by using the middle mouse button to deselect all of the ones over there, which didn't work because I'm not in wireframe mode. So now I can deselect all of those, and I only have this side left. And I put myself in front view, and I extrude, right-click, scale, and I scale those vertices down until they're a good bit smaller. I move them so that they're more or less in the center. And now I will show you something that is very useful, which is the F3 key. This used to be the space bar because people said, hey, the most important feature should have the biggest key. Yeah, no space is play, which also makes sense. And the search menu is the F3 key. So whichever command you're looking for, you can just hit F3 and then type the command. And I'm looking for a command that is called to sphere. Mesh transform to sphere. And this will gradually shift myself closer to a sphere. And you can see the value is right now, it's at 0. And it changes between 0 and 1. So I can also just type 1 for making it perfectly spherical. Enter. And now I can move it in the middle of the eye, scale it up a little bit. And now I could recreate the rest of the eye. I guess I would have to move it a bit in the Y direction so that it comes out in front here. Now it's another extrude, another GY for moving it up a bit. I could make it a bit bigger and then make another extrude and another scale and another GY. And I could also decide to merge all of those vertices into one. Maybe I should put it in the middle first. So in the same place where we found the merge before, there's also a merge at center. So this will collapse all the vertices to one and leave it right in the center. So now I can leave edit mode, delete the eye, and it should look somewhat similar, which it doesn't. I did something, but you get the idea. I think I might try. You remember that I told you about the normals that that should always point outwards from the middle? Ah, no, I forgot one important step. Actually, let me take you back 1 second. So somewhere here, I had the to sphere already done, but my sphere is not flat. And if I want to get it flat, I scale it in the Y direction, so it would make it less flat and more flat the closer I get to 0. And I really put exactly 0. Unfortunately, the eye is slightly turned, so I will have to like rotate it so that it's kind of aligned with the original one. And now I will do another extrude scale, GY, extrude, and then mesh, merge at center. And now this should look much better. Yeah, more or less. With the eye. Yeah. Ah, something. But you get the idea. Okay, enough of this. Let's try this. Did I do anything similar? Ah, yeah. Of course, instead of modeling the other eye as well, I could just cut it in half like we did before and use the symmetry modifier. And then we could apply the modifier and we would get the same result as modeling it twice. This is also showing you how to apply the modifier. no, wait. Before we get to sculpting, I'll show you some other fun stuff. So, so we have a high resolution mesh, and we know that we can select edge loops by alt clicking on things. And Suzanne is full of edge loops that go in all kinds of funky directions. And I could just select an edge loop and scale it, and it would give Suzanne like a funky little beard. But what I actually wanted to show you is the non-proportional edit in this case. Sorry, the proportional editing. So if I hit the O key or select this one up here, now I can influence the vertices around it. So if I do scale now, depending on the size of my circle, if I make it very small, it's just like a normal scale. But if I make it bigger, I can influence the geometry around it and make a looking Suzanne. Of course, the same is true for moving. So if I just select one vertex and do a GZ, it will like move all of the geometry apart from the fake eye. Okay. Whee! We could just give it a horn. Yeah, the non-proportional editing is comes in very handy in many places. Okay, so I leave edit mode and I go to sculpt mode. That's the first that we enter into sculpt mode, and you will see that your cursor changes to a circle. And if I go and I draw, I will draw on the back. If I draw on the object, you can see that it kind of deforms. There's like stuff appearing. And the way this works depends on the resolution of your mesh. So the higher your resolution, the more detail you can sculpt. Right now, if I make my brush a bit smaller, which is the F key, I think I have it in here. Sculpt mode, F key is change brush size. So if I hit F, I can move in and out for changing the brush size. And I can do Alt F, Shift F for changing the strength of my brush. Yeah. And now if I draw with this very small brush, nothing really happens. Because my geometry is too coarse to respond to this very small brush. I would need to make it a bit bigger with F. And now it would be more visible if we change it. Yeah. Okay. But if you want to properly sculpt, we need a high resolution. So I go back to object mode. I delete Suzanne and add another Suzanne. And this time, instead of using the subdivision surface modifier, I use what is called multi-resolution, which basically does the same thing, but it has a few extras, especially for sculpting. So you select Suzanne, you go to the modifier menu, properties, you add a modifier to resolution, more or less in the middle of the second column. And here, there's no input field where I put in the number of subdivides. I have to click on subdivide. And before you click it, the more often you click it, the more geometry you will get. And I think on my computer, like if I subdivide it 10 times, it will crash. But let's see how far I get. So at level 2, 3, 4, and you can see how everything gets smoother and smoother over here.
Oh.
Level 5 should be kind of the limit for on my machine here. But now you can tell that this is already quite high resolution. And if I change to sculpt mode right now, I can even choose like a very small brush, F for changing the brush size. And you can see that when I'm moving my mouse over here, there's another dot appearing on the other side. And this is because by default, the sculpting has the X mirror enabled. So up here, you can tell it that you want symmetry, that everything you do in one axis also happens in the other. You could even select all of those at once, so everything you would do would be like point symmetric and doubled in like the 3 directions. So maybe I'll just leave this on, why not? And now if I draw something, you can see that the resolution is a lot better. Only problem is I still see the polygons, so I Control tab back. Damn it! I select object mode, and I make my shade smooth, and now I can go back to sculpt mode. Okay, so sculpt mode. So we have 8 minutes. I'll try to be quick. I would normally spend like a few hours on sculpt mode, but just a quick overview. So the default brush is just draw, which kind of adds material if you just draw on it. And if you hold the Alt key, the Control key, instead of adding, it will remove material. Yeah. And this works for all of the brushes. And the next one is draw sharp. And this one allows you to like, I make my brush a bit bigger. And if I draw over this corner, it will kind of make a crease. So instead of being this smooth transition, it makes a sharp transition. So, I'm sure if this is visible. Yeah. The next one is clay. And clay is just like adds clay. It's the longer you move over the same spot, the more it will grow. Yeah, that's the only difference to the draw. Clay strips is quite cool because it kind of adds a layer of clay. So you can just, yeah, people use it a lot for just roughing out shapes because you do add stuff and you also create a little bit of texture. You can tell that now we have this. This is perfect for like Dadaistic style of working because you will start seeing patterns in this texture that you're creating, and then you can detail it and do interesting things. Clay thumb is as if you had your thumb and you wipe over the clay, so it moves it a little bit, but it also flattens it a little bit. Layer. I will make my brush a bit smaller again because layer, and also depending on the strength, it will just like add like a constant height something to it. If I decrease the strength with Shift F, take it down a bit, the same thing will be less high. It's a bit like clay strips, but you have to click twice for adding another layer. Then blob just makes a blob. So we need a bigger brush for that. Yeah, so it just like grows like a dimple. Oh no, this was inflate. Ah yeah, this is blob. Inflate inflates it a bit like the scale along normals. And blob draws blobs. Crease is a bit like the draw sharp, but crease will take all the vertices and move them closer to your cursor position. So the effect is similar. If we look in edit mode, we can see. Oh no, I will have to apply the modifier first. But what actually happens is that like it just moves all the geometry closer to this edge. Then we have smooth. So smooth is kind of like the eraser. Like if you like now, if I wanted to get rid of all of this stuff I did, I could just smooth it out. So smooth is like the a bit like the undo for the sculpt mode. Then we have flatten, and flatten just creates a flat face. So if you move over a certain area a bit longer, it will get flat. You see? And this is really cool. Like if you want to make robots and things that have this like that look a bit like sci-fi style, and they mostly have flat faces or like slightly rounded, and this is what you can perfectly create. You could also then use let's say the crease brush and go over the border between them, so it would create like, okay, I'm not a very good sculptor, but yeah, yeah, that's the flatten brush. Then fill will just like, yeah, fill an area. So if I want to fill this ear, I could just go in here. Whoops. Could just fill it like this. It's like increasing the water level in there. Yeah, I'm doing it badly. I should stay in here. Yeah, that's the fill brush. And then we have scrape. And scrape is actually quite cool. It's like, you know, when you're working with clay, you have these scrapers, which is basically just like a bent piece of metal. And it allows you to draw like sharp contours. So if I go over this edge here with the scrape tool, I can make like a perfectly scrape ear. And then there's also the multiplane scrape, which does something very similar, but it even shows you, like, can you see my scraper? It follows the normal of the underlying faces. Oops, okay. Then pinch is very similar to the crease, and what do I pinch? I could pinch the nose. Then there's grab. Grab just takes geometry and moves it. It's like the move tool of the sculpt mode. So I could make the nose a bit longer. And elastic deform. This elastically moves stuff, so it drags stuff with it that is close to it. And then we have the I think it's called dragon hook, no, snake hook. So I could give Suzanne, let's make it a bit smaller. I could give Suzanne these ones. Yeah. And then this one is thumb. This is similar to one of those up there. And oh, then there's the pose brush, which is still quite new, which allows you. So I could select. Whoops. Like this one is great if you have like a model of a human body and you wanna only move the fingers. You could use this one to just you see the white line. This is kind of defining the joint. And so now it could move the geometry around like if it was like a joint. Oops. Okay. And then we have nudge and rotate. But there's a whole lot of brushes. You can also mask out parts that you don't want to be affected. Maybe just a quick one. If you take the standard brush, up here you have like all the settings for brush size, brush strength, if you have a Wacom board or something that is pressure sensitive, you can turn on and off if this gets affected. You can also, like the more modern drawing boards, they also take into consideration the direction of your pen. And in Brush, you have some more settings on. You can do stuff like auto smoothing, so it works as if you had like a the smooth brush included in your brush. And in texture, you can choose a texture that you want to put on your brush. But right now we don't have a texture, so I would go down here where it says texture properties, and I add a new texture. So by default, this is an image. So I could open a JPEG here if I wanted, or any other picture format. But you also have like generative pictures that are created by formulas. And I just take, let's say, the distorted noise, which is just like a crackly pattern like this. I could change the size and the amount of the seed and several parameters. And so now I just created a texture. I could name it noise. And now it appears up here. So if I had several, I could choose one, but let's take the noise, and I make my brush a bit bigger. And while scaling, you see the noise being applied to it. And now if I draw, I get this texture from the noise in there as well. And of course, you could draw your own images and use this as a texture. You can scale the size of the noise, you can scale the size of the brush, you can change the strength of it, you can change the normal direction of it. But I guess, of course, the higher the resolution of your mesh, the more detail you will have in this operation. But yeah, that's just one thing that I still wanted to mention. And yeah, I would recommend that we do another session next Sunday, if you want, where we could dive a bit deeper in stuff like maybe animation, maybe make a little simulation, or go deeper into sculpting. I guess I'll do like a little poll or something asking you what you would be interested in. But I'll write you an email and let's see what happens.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
It's 9 o'clock, so we're getting closer to the end. But if you have any questions, I'd be happy to help you.
I have just a small question, a simple thing. When you select with the B key, what is the difference of using the box select or just click and dragging selections where?
So right now I'm here, and if yeah, you don't need to box select. Right? You can just click and drag. That's the same thing. Yeah. It depends on what you have selected here. Like this icon didn't exist before. So in the default, I think the default was tweak. You could tweak stuff just by dragging it. And this might still happen because now if I leave edit mode and I go back, it's still in tweak. So now I can't draw rectangles for selecting. So I would have to hit the B key.
Okay.
Or hit W until I cycle to the right one that I want. But I got so used to B and S that I don't use this menu.
You're using it by
nice
default.
Yeah, but it's not always behaving the same way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You can customize Blender a lot, and until like maybe I think until 2.5, you had to select stuff with the right mouse button, which drove everybody hated Blender because it selects with the right mouse button. So everybody's like, Blender, that's this crazy program where you have to right click to select. So there was a big discussion, I think at least 5 years, where there was one group saying, hey, we should make it left click select. And I think I also quickly told you that there's a whole forum that is called right click select. Because so it's part of the Blender community. Blender had a lot of battles over, should we do it the way everybody else does it? Oh, I'm not sharing my screen, just a sec. Should we do it the same way? Oh, then you also didn't see what I showed you in, I'm sorry. Maybe just click it.
I understood, yeah.
The W key is the one where you can toggle through those. But if you have, let's say you have tweak selected, and you can't box select anymore. You need the B key. Okay, and so there were lots of issues where one group said, no, let's just leave it the way it is because everybody got used to it. We are happy right-click selecting, just leave us alone. And the other group that says, hey, but we should be open to like new people coming to Blender, and if they have to right-click for selecting, they will just leave. They will say, oh, this program is horrible. Never use a program where you have to right-click for selecting. And so this developed to this right-click select part of the Blender community where people can propose changes and they get weighted. So the higher the weight, the more probable it is that it's going to be implemented. And yeah, so much on, oh yeah, so I said that don't customize your Blender too much because once everybody started, because you could always change which key you use for selecting. So some people would switch it to the left key. But then imagine me giving a Blender class, walking around class where each student has a different key for selecting. It drives you crazy. And each time you use Blender on a different computer, you have to like configure all your shortcuts again. So I just leave Blender mostly in the defaults. Right now I'm a bit annoyed because, for example, in the switching between those used to be Control-Tab, but now there's like a menu opening, and the regular shortcuts for selecting those is 1, 2, 3. But this doesn't work if you have the emulate numpad option on. So yeah, so right now I'm kind of upset. Like they changed something that I really liked, and now it doesn't work anymore. And oh, I wasn't sharing my screen again. Sorry, but yeah, never mind. Blender is fully customizable, but I would. If you can avoid it, just leave it the way it is, because just the way it is, it does everything you need. Apart from a few little exceptions now.
Hey, Ferdy, if you're doing a next session next week, I kind of lost it when you were busy changing the monkey. But yeah. I don't mind about that for today. My head is full. Where is the level where we should be if we want to get along with you?
I will post the videos of what we did today, so you can watch it again, maybe a bit slower. I will put all the shortcuts in the list and explain a little bit. And this is the level I want you to be. So if you manage to follow today's class without big problems, you're ready. And if not, you might have to watch it again.
Yeah, but I did manage to do the chair and to do everything else there. But then you were just somewhere in the, well, very deep making clay and everything. And I thought, well, I don't think the first weeks I'm going to use that anyway. So sorry. I kind of lost it there. But it doesn't matter. It's good to see. But that's not a problem then for next week.
No, you're good.
Yeah, cool.
Like sculpt mode is kind of its own little bubble, and
yeah, I thought so. But I missed if that was something that we should dive into this week.
No, like all the modeling stuff, I would consider essential. there's a lot more, and I could drop 50 shortcuts on you, but a good in between too many and too little.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Thank you for today. I'll be there next week. I'm getting dinner every Sunday night like this for my family. It's really cool.
Great. You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, then if there's no more questions, I think we call it a day, no?
Yeah, thank you very much, Fer. It was cool.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
I'll write an email
Thank you.
with a link to the well, what then was before, but the video will pop up, and I will try to figure out a way to ask you what you're most interested in. Okay. Good evening.
Ja, danke schön.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Deus, obrigado.
Obrigado.